Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Marian Temelkov.
Hello everyone, I'm super excited to welcome a very special guest today. I'm joining you from a different spot for the ones who follow us. I'm actually today in Sofia, and I'm privileged to be joining from this part of the world and welcome Sandra Lopez, an inspirational leader, someone who really cares, and a very strong woman that actually serves many other women in leadership. And I would love to hear about you, Sandra. And of course, I know you a little bit, but the more I learn about you, the more inspired I am. I know sometimes men are intimidated by strong women, so I'd like to talk about this because you are certainly a very successful and inspirational leader. And that's one of the topics we want to talk about. But first of all, tell us a little bit about you and where you're coming from, where you're joining us from today. And first of all, thank you for making the time. I know how busy you are and what you do today. So that would be great if you can share just a brief introduction.
Thank you, Marian. And, first, thank you for having me on this show. And honestly, for driving awareness on this important character trait that you're calling care, because it's really rarely associated with leadership skills. I had the pleasure of Googling leadership and care, and very few content came up. And then you Google leadership and visionary, and there's a bunch of content. So thank you and to your team for really focusing on, I think, a character trait that's going to be defining future leaders. But to your question around, tell you a little bit about myself. I firmly believe that to understand who one is, you have to probably go back to understanding where they come from. So I'll start a little bit with my childhood. I'm first generation American, middle child. Raised by very, very traditional Mexican-American Catholic parents who migrated to the United States. My father migrated here in pursuit of his own passion. My mother, migrated to the United States in pursuit of just a better life for herself and what would soon be her future 4 children. We grew up in California, honestly in the heart of Silicon Valley before Silicon Valley became Silicon Valley. Really raised in a predominantly upper, middle class Caucasian neighborhood. And I was really fortunate to have an amazing education. However, at the same time, growing up in a upper middle class Caucasian neighborhood, and I'm 100%, Mexican American, I honestly felt that I never really fit in. And ironically, every summer, we had the great pleasure of going to Mexico and visiting all these great small towns where my father and mother grew up, and the great oceans of Mexico. But that was also funny because I would go visit my family and friends over in Mexico, and they would say that I wasn't Mexican enough. And so growing up enabled me to kind of really hone in, I would say, 3 particular skills. One was the art of assimilation. I really became good at being a chameleon, meaning figure out where you are and fit in as quickly as possible because of my duality in terms of I was Mexican and trying to fit in American culture, would go to Mexico and try to fit into American culture. So I was able to hone in that power of assimilation. The other one was really about being bicultural, really gave me the understanding that we all come from different places and different perspectives. So while diversity and inclusion has become arguably the cool thing the last 5 years, I always really understood that we all come from different places and have different histories. And the last thing is when I like to punctuate that I was a middle child, albeit my parents were always busy with my older sister and my younger sister, and I just had to figure things out and make it happen. which ended up being a really good trait as I pursued my professional career. So, which all of this led into, as a child, I was fixated in terms of establishing businesses, but more so the art of fashion and really understanding, like, Marian, I'm kind of laughing. You're wearing blue, I'm wearing red, but we're not here to make a political statement, right? But like, why did I wake up and wear a red blazer? Or why did you wake up and wear a blue blazer? But I was really fascinated by the fashion and how fashion impacts society. And so I went to pursue a dual career in fashion and business. And then I graduated, went to a private school in Italy, in Bologna, Italy, and came back to the United States, kicked off my first career in corporate America. And I quickly realized within a couple of months that in order to drive impact in business and fashion, you really had to be a creative director. And my principle was I was never going to be a B player. I was going to be an A player. So if I was not going to be a creative director, I was more on the area of business, maybe fashion wasn't the exact right thing for me. But really punctuated me to leave fashion and embark the journey of technology in Silicon Valley was a meeting that I had with C-level executives. And this was for more emerging talent. They decided to have lunch with, a couple of what they saw were possible future leaders for the company. And the chief operating officer, I will never forget this, leaned in and told me why another colleague of mine who happened to be male would be more successful than me. And I naturally thought, Marianne, it was going to be something around, well, he's better at statistics, he's better at analytics. And we had to hone in like analytical skills for being a merchant in fashion. And he said to me, well, there's a glass ceiling that exists. And I knew at that very moment, it was my time to exit fashion. And the next day I decided to quit. And I really quit because nobody's going to tell me, no, I can't achieve something that I want to achieve. So if I wanted to be an executive at that company, he already said I had zero shots, so might as well control my own destiny. So I decided this is the story of pivoting. How do you take what you have learned? How do you take your experiences and embark on a different journey? And I knew, going back to my interest in things that affect society, technology was going to transform how we're going to, work and play. And I was able to land a job in a big company in Silicon Valley. I really appreciated the function of marketing and the relationship that your company has with your consumers. And I had my heart set on being a chief marketing officer. So what did I do? I'm like, what does it take to be a CMO? Learn all the functions, go to many different companies, learn different leadership skills, and was fortunate to do that. Was also part of, Marianne, the dot-com bust for some of you guys, late 90s, early 2000s. And just like when I was a middle child, I decided to, I didn't have a job at the time, buy a one-way ticket to New York without a job, without any friends, and figure out how I'm going to make it in New York. And I was fortunate to meet an individual by the name of Eli Goodrich, who met me, saw what I was capable of doing before I even knew what I was capable of doing, placed a bet on me, hired me to run his professional services division in the context of business marketing, went there, got recruited eventually to come back to Silicon Valley, and have done many different roles in marketing. And eventually, Marianne, I looked at my pedigree and I realized I had two specific gaps in the technology field. One is understanding Asian markets. I knew Asia, China, India would play a significant role in overall business. And two, I was very software centric. And so in order for me to understand Asia, I had to double down on the hardware industry. And so I landed a job at Intel. And I often like to say I've been there for 15 years. It's a company that has provided me many different gifts. And I would say one of the gifts was, I think you've said this before, we've chatted in the past, that you can be at a company for 15 years and yet have multiple different jobs. And so I had a job, kicking off the marketing organization, parts of the marketing organization, had an opportunity to go live in China, and then came back, and Intel placed a bet on me with regards to creating new businesses. And I didn't even realize I had some muscles in terms of driving an overall business. And so I've been fortunate to run the wearable business. And then my upper management said, you were great at that. Can you help us establish a new business in the immersive media category? So I am here today at Intel Sports, really focused on igniting the passion and knowledge of the sports industry with our technology. And so that's where I am today. And it's been super exciting. And along the way, I've had some, trials and tribulations. Which has been exciting and also hard at the same time.
Oh, what an inspirational story. I mean, a big number of really great advices already by just sharing and how to pivot, how not to settle for less, and really even love the fact that you bought a one-way ticket, burn the bridges behind. And that sounds, very exciting. And really, what inspired you really to do so much of extracurriculum work outside your own career? Because I know for a lot of the listeners, they may not know how much you actually have helped many other women in leadership and what you actually been doing outside your own career.
And I think it's really interesting because when I started my career, and I'll be honest and transparent, I was really focused on me. I had my agenda. I wanted to be a C-level executive, whether the CMO or CEO. And there was a moment in time in my career, and it was at Intel, in which a gentleman by the name of Ernie Felix, and I'd like to call him out because he really transformed my life. And I was 6 months into Intel. He put a meeting on my calendar talking about the Intel Latino Leadership Council. And I'm like, okay, I'll take a meeting. I'm new to Intel. What's really important, establishing your network. So we chatted, and he asked me this question. Two things. In the conversation, I was very honest and said, I've never made my gender ethnicity an issue. I've never participated in things around Latino community building, whether I was in college or school, or for that matter, the previous companies that I worked for. And he asked me this question. So do you not think being a Latina has not affected you in your career? And I'm like, no, never made it an issue. But it was interesting. Sometimes the job is for individuals to seed you either a question that makes you think. And several months later, literally this happened in the shower, I began to realize that at that time, I was in my mid-30s. For all of my life, I really hid who I was. I hid that I was Mexican. I hid that I was. You can see that I'm a woman when you come into a man's world. I played golf. I wore suits. I literally bought shoes that looked like men's shoes, square toes, stacked heels. They weren't feminine, even though I loved dresses. But it goes back to, as a child, I learned how to assimilate. And so for about 35 years of my life, and then for the early part of my career, I wore a mask. And when I realized that I wasn't who I was, I'm a woman, I am bicultural, I'm Latina, I have my own purpose in life. Society tells me who to become. I began, Marianne, to go on a 3-year-long journey with the help of executive coaches and therapy to really unlock who I'm so supposed to be. And in the process, Marianne, I learned that the hardships that we have as females, right? It is. I always tell people, like, no matter what, you are a woman, expect to work harder. Also, there are things about maybe Latin culture. I talk about respect, and respect is great, but respect in a corporate setting means I don't want to challenge my executive management. But that's not going to help you to, drive the business forward. And so in that process of learning who I am, I also realized that there are probably many individuals like myself, the next generation, that could probably use help. And I always go back like, wow, if I had a mentor, during that time when the chief operating officer told me that there was a glass ceiling and I could seek advice, maybe my decision would be different. And so, and I see injustices. I tell people, like, I see an injustice almost every single day. So if I can help the next generation, and whether it's male, female, any ethnicity, I think I have the duty and responsibility to do so. And so I do that because, no pun intended, but because I care. I care that people don't have to, have some of the struggles that I struggled with. And so if we can remove a little bit, I'm more than happy to dedicate my time to that effort.
No, first of all, thank you for doing that, Sandra, and actually sharing this story quite openly, because a lot of people are going through that. A lot of people wear masks, first of all, not only physical masks because of Corona, but also imaginary masks, and
Yes.
these are the ones that are actually we would love to see, because when you taken off and people be accepted or live the passionate lives they want to for without pretending to be someone else, and I think there is actually when you stick to the truth, when you're honest with yourself, that helps you a lot.
Yes.
People that are in cross motivation, I call it cross motivation, when body and mind are not together for a very long time, they start to have a lot of issues. And if your body and mind is not aligned, that's when diseases come in. If you and my advice to people, if you're in cross motivation with heart and mind and gut are not aligned, well, the first thing you do is invite them for coffee, sit down in your own or tea or whatever you like, and try to sort it out.
Yeah.
because if you don't, you will pay the consequences later. And it's okay, you can do that for a period of time, but it's not sustainable. And the sooner you sort it, the better life you have, for the longer you have. So thank you for sharing that story first. But more importantly, thank you for being a giver. Thank you for kind of caring. And you're absolutely right. We talk about care culture, and when you look at on Google, or even when you do the hashtag on LinkedIn, there doesn't exist care culture. We would love to. It exists because we'd just love to spread it more. That's all. And there are people who and leaders who actually care, because we had a great guest. His name is Paul Dunn, who helped more than 3,000 businesses with donations of more than 235 million.
Wow.
And he said something very nice, that he said a leader who cares helps a company that is standard company stand out.
Yep.
And doing more of this, and many others have said, actually it serves not only yourself, but it serves many others, and that comes back on you by serving others. It's often people try to solve their problems, but sometimes they can't until they start serving others, and then they start seeing, actually this kind of comes back on. So this is really great to hear you. And I know this exists around the world and people have certain stereotypes. What do you think we can do? Just every one of us, it doesn't have to be one small step that we can, if we all do, we can move that needle from kind of breaking that habit of being a taker to actually being a giver.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And your podcast and your program is really punctuating the importance of, I would argue, humanity. And if you think about, I think we have to reframe business. We often talk about bottom line. We often talk about OKRs, KPIs. We do at times talk about organizational structures. I do think we give lip service to, the people are our business. We hear a lot of that verbally, but I'm a very big believer that words are meaningless. Focus on the actions. And so my point of view is we have to act more human. And COVID-19 punctuated this, right? companies now need to think about their values. What do you do with Black Lives Matter? What do you do when maybe family members are passing away? What do you do? Especially, you know, we're a global company. We have many family and friends and colleagues in India, and what's going through India is something that is super heartbreaking. What do you do with Israel and Palestine, right? We have a big presence in Israel. And and my whole principle during COVID and going through some things in my personal life, I really began to think about humanness. And if you think about humanness, then care is a vital trait. You know, we talk about caring in our personal life, but never in our professional life. And so I know there's a lot of conversations around empathy and seeking to understand your colleagues. But what about you as a human? How do you show up? How do you care more, right? When the whole thing around Black Lives Matter was coming up, I have many friends. I actually have a very diverse team. I have African Americans, I have Latinos, I have all ages, and I don't, I think I'm very inclusive. But I had to ask myself the question, Marian, is like, am I anti-racist? Am I doing things to help address that? And I think, and if I do things that help the cause, it's a path to caring. If I sit there and I get to know my teams, I talked about at the very beginning, to know who you are is to seek to understand where you come from. I spent a lot of time trying to understand my team members and how they were raised, because that gives me a tune to some of their triggers. How do I adjust my style? So I do think the way that we can, care more is, well, let's just start putting it into our vernacular business. Like, let's get more content out there. So when we do Google it next, Marianne, a year from now, you'll see a litany of content. But let's just really break down that business is a human business, and really think about what it means to be human. And it's all the emotions, and it's okay to show up one day and say, I'm sad. During the winter time, I was going through a tough time in my life. And I told my team, like, I need your help. I'm not here. I'm not giving it 100%. So can you help show up so that we deliver on our overall business? But I asked for help. I couldn't get through some of the days. And it was amazing how your team rallies behind you to support each other. And team's a really big, important word, because we all want to win. And sometimes, we get hurt. And so somebody has to come in and pinch hit. So I think that's one of the ways in terms of the path to a more caring business.
I love it. And to be honest with you, I have a dream. I'm a dreamer, and I'm a dreamer of a better world and more caring world. And when you talk about all these differences, when you talk about all these conflicts around the world, there's one thing that unites us all, and this is care. People respond to care. When you start to show interest and start to take care of, and even start be interested first in what people's, try to put yourself in their shoes and start taking care. And you said something very, very interesting here, that talking about diversity, touching on that topic, talking about obviously how we business, and you know what? I don't think we have to compromise on any of this. I think we can have absolutely prospering businesses with the best bottom line that anyone can have dreamed of in terms of possibilities, without compromising on the level of care. In fact, they go hand with hand. I believe sincerely that if we bring those three elements that we just talked about, but do not address them separately, address them together. This is bottom line, diversity and care. Bring me an organization that have them, all three of them. It will be one of the most successful companies in the world. I am absolutely convinced.
Yeah, I agree, Marianne. There was a research by, I think it was Google, who talked about one of the elements of the high-performing team is psychological safety. I think underlining psychological safety is caring, right? The ability to allow people to show up the way they need to show up, the ability actively listening and not retaliating. And so I do agree with you that if you inject care into one of the other two elements, it will drive towards a high performing team and ultimately results in bottom line impact, and it's all great for our stakeholders.
And you know what? I love all the awards and recognitions around the world for many different reasons. Sustainability, of course, looking at business, profit, success. I would love to have an award for the most caring company in the world. This is what I dream of. And companies to shift that needle and and in that can incorporate many things, not only sustainability, but level of care for your employees. What about the care for the families of your employees?
Right.
What about the community of those employees? And then we're just thinking of the level of care that and we can measure that with a way that can be done. And it's very interesting because I strongly believe that this will not go against the bottom line. Also, I strongly believe that people that have strong opinions on certain topics, they should go and check out the opposing opinions. So they should find the extreme ends on what they believe in. And the two outcomes, either they'll firm up and believe even they're convinced or they will change their mind and look at what's possible. This is highly recommendable and healthy. And that's why a great CEO told me and said, Marian, the success and performance is closely linked to the diversity of the team as well. So this exists. So I believe that the diversity is also about opposing opinions, opposing views. Exactly. And that helps people grow in that, because it sparks debates and prevents arising conflicts. And if this is embodied by care, then we'll not have wars because we'll be able to actually understand, learn about the differences of each other. Yes, well, in the context of business, and that's why even in Dynamis we say want to be a catalyst for positive impact in the world, because through business we can make this change through business. So I'm convinced that this should not be necessarily only in a non-profit. Yes, this is a great way, but business is, as business leaders, what would be your advice, Sandra, to really leaders or CEOs or really startup organizations or unicorn founders that are listening to this? What will be your advices to them for building up the future, laying the foundation of a sustainable unicorn or sustainable business model, or really anything that from your experience, that if somebody is right now rethinking the future of business or starting a new venture right now, what would be the top 3 advices that they should strongly consider or even bet on?
Yeah, I mean, I think let me just echo what you just said, right? We have seen, and I'm sick and tired of all the case studies, and there's enough, you compare companies in terms of diverse boards and non-diverse boards, and the ones that have diverse boards have higher impact. Okay, so we've shown you all the data. It exists. Stop ignoring it. Start with, and we all know, and you highlighted this, Marian, right? The most influential people are board of directors driving business and society, both on the public and private sector. So I'm tired of case studies. I'm tired of citing all the data numbers. I've stopped doing that. And get a diverse board, because it all starts from the top down. That's the way it works, right? And I know in some cases there's this healthy debate, like in California, if you're a publicly traded company, you have to have a minimum of 2 diverse board members. Stop with, and then what's happening now, which is I think an interesting perspective, is, oh, I have my 2, I have my woman, and I have my Latin person. No.
I just want to say I love California. Thank you for setting a trend. You are amazing state and inspiration for the rest of the world. Thank you, California.
Yeah, no, we don't get thanked a lot, but that one, yeah, that's been a good one. But Marianne, I would challenge that because we had an interesting debate with some of my colleagues, some of my friends that are in VOD, is that having the goal of 2, it stops there, right?
Well, it should be at least.
At least. That's the key thing. It's at least 2. So, I like Ruth Ginsburg's quote is in terms of like how many, Supreme Court justices should be females, and she's like, all of them. They should all be, right? But that's actually not really diverse. But my perspective there is that at a senior level role that's my number one thing. I know you said 3. I'm going to focus on that one thing. Like at the top, board of directors and C-level, they should all be diverse. Because if you are a business that you're serving other businesses and or consumers, your business partners that you're selling to, I'm surely they're going to be diverse. 50% of the females in our population. We live in a global world, and also from the perspective of the C-level, you want to represent your employees. You want to be able to understand some people that are entering the workforce, and they may work for a technology company, but they may still be living for like a paycheck by paycheck. Some individuals know where it comes from, living paycheck by paycheck. And so if you're going to make a benefit policy change, making sure that you're thinking about all the employees that are being affected. And so what I would like to challenge, so diversity, absolutely, and don't stop at diversity, but making sure that everybody feels like they belong, that their voices are being heard. What you said, Maria, I think is really important, is we don't always have to agree. And that's actually the great thing, is when you disagree, you learn and you create healthy tension so that you get the best outcome, right? Those debates, I know when I look at my diverse team and we have these healthy debates, the output is so much greater than somebody that thinks like me. Oh yeah, great, Sandra, that's great. Wasn't even challenged. I'm not growing in the process. And so, diversity and ensuring that we all belong. And then the second one, which is why I'm here in your podcast, is the path to absolutely caring, but just let's be human. Let's realize that we're imperfect. Let's realize that we come to the table with history, like good or bad, and let's give people the benefit of the doubt, right? We quickly judge, we quickly assume things, and so I think if we can impart on a more human business, will be better business.
Thank you so much, Sandra. This is such a great advice, and it resonates so well, because you're absolutely right. We people do come with history, but it's let me just kind of encourage that, just to add on to this, and I believe it makes so much sense. When a valuation of a company, the share price is decided, history kind of, yes, it's taken into account, but the valuation is not based on the past. It's based mainly on the future potential. So this, you just said it. Yes, people may have certain history, but try to understand who they really are, what they're passionate about, what their expertise are, how do they approach things, what they're passionate about, and give them a chance. Because don't see people for what they are, but what they could be.
Right.
Could be a great asset. And you just said it, and be human. And then when people don't perform, find out, how are you?
Yeah.
Are you all right? Your family okay? Because sometimes we just focus on numbers, but behind the number there is a human, a feeling. And if you get to know that feeling, which comes with care, you'll be able to unlock those numbers to much greater numbers, to be honest, because it's no longer about just pushing people to do things, but it's about taking care of them in order to be free to do a lot more than what you thought is possible. And I think the role of the CEO, of the leader, is actually not to take care of their clients, but to take care of their people who take care of their clients.
Yep. We're here to serve our team members, who then serve, the partners and the customers. I 100% agree with you. And I think I always believe your point around your employees and what's happening outside of work is really important, because I prefer, during COVID and Black Lives Matter, individuals struggled with, members that were falling ill. You became a teacher at home while trying to drive a job, and people struggled. Does one person exit the workforce and have a single parent and paying parent? And the psychological impact of things like Black Lives Matter, Israel and Palestine. And, my perspective to my team is, first and foremost, is your health. So, physical and mental. Take care of that first, because I know if you take care of that, you will show up and be super productive at work. And so giving my team, they're all self-aware. They're all leaders in their own right. I don't care what age you are at. I focus on hiring the best talent, and which means that they're self-sufficient and they can self-regulate. And look, if you need that mental day off, take it. We got your back. I think that's really important. So I know when they come back, they're on their A game and we get higher productivity. So I think that's very, very important, is seeking to understand, to your point, of what's happening around their lives, being flexible, understanding, and partnering with each other. It's like we're in a relationship, right? You got to partner with each other so that we can win.
You said something so great here, Sandra, and we have a question as well related to the mental health and some of those issues, because this is very much really it's scaling up right now with all people working out, unfortunately, but this can be overturned. And I believe a lot of goodness is coming after these difficult times and sadness we had with around Corona. But I love what you just said. What a great advice. Give your people, to recharge. I call them creative days. And people can go for a creative day where their mission is to wander and find out the most recharging way for them to spend the day. And they can share it with their colleagues. That inspires, because people can think, because you're absolutely right. It's our responsibility to self-regulate and to know what charges up and what doesn't, and to do it, because you show up for your colleague, you radiate for your family, and that's so important in that. And I just wanted to ask you this question from Stoyan. Thank you for sharing this just now. And he says, Sandra, mental health issues and burnouts has risen to a record high. Do you think we should change the way we lead and pay more attention to business leaders? What practical advice would you share?
Oftentimes if you understand, you come up with things and ideas that you can recommend. So, we all used to focus on physical, right? You can physically see if you're like working out, and that's always great. Mental health is something that you don't see, and it has had a stigma. And I think, Marian, to your point, COVID, one of the gifts of COVID is mental health is being talked about more and more. And so when I look at mental health, we're all different, and it's really seeking to understand the tools that you need to help get yourself to a better place. And as companies, when we think about benefits, think about mental health and the tools that you can provide your employees at no cost. Because there you go again, if you can help them with mental health, they're going to show up better. As individuals, it's okay to talk about, I am struggling, I need help. And so that's why I publicly talk about, COVID affected me. So aspects of my personal life affected me. So I talk about publicly therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, transcendental meditation, meditate, yoga, soul energy, like things that oftentimes people say, well, that doesn't seem like it would come out of a corporate executive's mouth. I'm like, well, what is a corporate executive? And I do think society creates these truths of how a corporate executive should act, the taboos. Like if I talk about mental health, then it will affect my opportunity to grow within my company or for another company to consider me. And I'm like, well, if that's the company, if a company's going to judge me because I want to focus on my mental health, then it's not the right company for me. Right.
Well,
And
absolutely.
it's not like our values are not aligning. So that's okay. You know, that in itself is a loud message for me. So then I have to go pivot maybe to a different organization or to a different company. By the way, Intel's amazing. They have focused on mental health. And so I do think, like many other things, mental health being one thing, companies need to reimagine themselves. Though how it worked in the past is not going to work in today or in the future. And you got to bet the younger generation has no problem talking about this stuff. You know, they focus on this. And so if you want to hire the best talent, you're going to have to think about not only business output, you're going to have to think about the emotional input and output that goes into the business.
You said it so well. And in fact, mental health is why should it be an issue? In fact, it's like people talk about fitness. So
I know.
To be honest, it's pretty much, you know, when you take care of your brain, you got to train, and
Yep.
that's what mental health is. You know, if people you know, have an issue or some stereotypes from the past, I can tell you most of the young people nowadays are quite aware of mental health and they're using it. So and it's so healthy because it allows you to train your brain, so you actually know how to take care of yourself when you're running low. You have a and thankfully there are a lot more tools available. Maybe as a leader, they should get acquainted with the tools and the help available, so they can be prepared of how to support the organization as well, which I think will be a great service to them. It's again another level of care, even if you don't know anything about it.
I 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you.
I would love to talk so much. You know, this time has gone so quick, Sandra, with you, and there's so many other questions I would love to ask you, but I'm just cognizant of also your own time and what you have done. There's one important one I wanted to address with you. It's what excites you these days. What are the things that you kind of gives you energy and you're passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, so there's so many things that inspire me, but I'll start with something that I would argue has really taken, like I spent time really understanding this, is first and foremost, loving myself. And really understanding, what does that mean? The ability, as business people, we have a lot of noise, we're traveling all the time, but the power of silence and what it does for me, talk about mental and healthy. Like, I think I'm really passionate about learning what self-love means in a society that often will judge that as being selfish or she's into herself. And so one, the power of self-love. Two, I'm a perpetual student. I love to learn and seek. So when we chatted about a month ago and we were talking about caring, I started to research like care and leadership. And then I realized, like, wow, nobody's talking about this topic. And so the whole, for me, it's always learning and surrounding myself with those that have intellectual curiosity so that I can personally level up. And then I can't end without saying that my daughter of 11 years old is what, you know, I want to leave a better world for her. I believe we can all do better. I know I can do better. I know I can be kinder. I know I can be more caring. I know I can be more forgiving. And I think if I could become better and she sees what I do and how I act and how I show up, whether in business or whether in my personal life, and if I can open up the doors a little bit for her, whatever career she's going to do, right? Right now, she wants to be a lawyer. Tomorrow, she wants to be an artist, whatever it is. If I can make it that much better for her, I think I've done my duty here on Earth.
Well, thank you for doing that, Sandra. And I just want to, I was so inspired by your words, and absolutely. And I want to share with everybody that's listening, regardless of how hopeless situation could look like, how much bad talk you have to yourself, because even people that do not care, they have it deep down in themselves. We are designed to live in a community and care for each other. So I know they have it somewhere. And do not say to yourself, I'm too old, I can't do it. You can do it at any moment of your life. Yes, it will be longer and more painful when you're, not a child, because they learn very quickly, and they have different frequency and brain neuroplasticity, but it's possible. It's like the character comes from the Greek word of chisel. So you kind of, with the hammer, you can make your masterpiece. So do not stop doing that at any stage of your life. You can do it if you wanted to, and for everyone can change and become better if they wanted to, if they have the right lever. I guess it's if you have a right lever, you can even move the earth, right? So you could do that. So that's a great really comment of what you just say, and thank you for doing that for the next generation, which I'm deeply passionate about, building wealth for generations, for more caring world, and really would love to see more of that. And just to wrap it up, on that kind of vision, what do you dream of, Sandra? If you close your eyes and you had no restrictions, what is your dream for a better world for your child? What does a better world look like for your child?
I think it's a concept that I've been talking about. Is I always talk about, like, when I breathe my last breath, what do I want to leave behind and recognize? Is that, did I create a world of joy for me and for those around me? And that's that simple. And if I focus on joy, inherently I'm focusing on caring. You think it would be easy. It's not easy. Like you said, like, half the time we self-sabotage ourselves, and spending so much time rewiring yourself for everything that you were taught as a little kid, or the principles of business that I was taught, like how to show up as a corporate executive, rewiring myself so that I can show up and be the happiest version of myself, and realize, and I'm creating a world of joy with me and for those that I choose to, partner with, for those people that I choose to be on my team. And if I'm experiencing joy, naturally my daughter is going to experience joy. That's just how it works. It's the network effect. So.
Well, thank you for really sharing all this, Sandra, and spending the time. I'm very positive and optimistic about humanity. I believe that a more caring world is coming. I believe I'm very encouraged. I can see the signs with, even there's about 650 probably startups by now. I'm not exact number, but I think there's about 2 unicorns a week coming up, and more than 650 unicorns already. A lot of them focus on better world, sustainability, and many great things. So I'm really optimistic about that, and I just want to first of all thank you for really the work you are doing and have done, and continuing to believe in a more human business, and more really kind of how can we be more really take care of each other as human beings, not as numbers, and keep spreading positivity, Sandra, and thank you so much for joining us today and spending the time.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you, Marian team, for hosting this amazing program and trying to spread more care into the business world.
Thank you.